Hello everybody and welcome to our VCP5 Data Center Virtualization course. I want to get one thing out of the way real quick. This is not an authorized course from VMware to take and pass your VCP exam. There are authorized courses that are approved by VMware that you will have to take, and I have a line of them listed on the right side of your screen there. The idea behind this course is to help you go through the material and get a solid understanding of how it works. So I would recommend downloading the blueprint from VMware site and going through and making sure you know all the pieces to it. I have listed a study guide on the right side of your screen that would be a great tool for you to use, as well as you might want to consider going out and paying for a monthly membership to a vendor's website that provides training for this. You're more than welcome to use my free course, or you could use I use CBT Nuggets as well as Pluralsight. I use both. They both provided great VMware training. That's how I use them to supplement the book, because I found it easier to follow somebody live in a video than it was to try to follow along in a book, where somebody might not quite word it quite correctly for me, or I might not understand what they're trying to write in their text. So for me, it was easier to watch somebody do it, and I can go, oh, that's what you clicked. So I would watch how somebody would do something, I would pause the video, then go over and do it myself, and go, oh, okay, it's not working. What did I miss? Go back, rewind 10-15 seconds, and go, okay, I did exactly what he did, and then maybe you missed something earlier than that. So I'm hopefully going to be able to take care of that as we go through. There's a lot of little things as we go through the videos and configure things and get stuff operational that is going to be needed to be understood, because it's going to, one thing is going to be needed in place, and then another thing is going to be needed in place, so that first thing is going to use the second thing to talk to the third thing, and a lot of layering is involved. So I like to analogate the VMware course that I'm doing here to what I do in my Cisco studies, my Cisco videos. There's going to be a lot of theory to explain what it is that you're going to be learning, what the topic is, how is it defined, and things like that. What are some examples of it, if possible. I will throw in any real-world experience I have with the technology and different ways that you could utilize it, just to get something you may not see in the book, something you may not see in the video, but more or less a potential use case for a real-world situation. So you would have because I find it easier if I know a real-world scenario where you might use the technology. Okay, why would you use XYZ technology in the world, or in the real world? Or is it just a feature capability inside of vSphere? Things like that. So the certification thing that you get right here, this is what you get from VMware once you have taken and passed the certification. Now, technically speaking, yes, you could go online and do exactly what I did. I did a Google search for the certification thing. Actually, this is the one that I received directly from VMware, and I copied and pasted it into Paint, and that's exactly what you see on my resume. And it sits there. Actually, I've actually got two VMware certifications. I have my VCP as well as my VCA, and the VCA is a free, or it's not free. It's a $100 test you take. It's live online, so you can take it from your house, and it validates a very, very basic level of understanding from VMware. There's actually a free course that VMware uses it's more of an introduction to VMware, vSphere, and data center virtualization, and it takes you through the very, very high level stuff. What is vMotion? What is DRS? What is DPM? Things like that. And we're going to talk about those as we go through in our videos, but in much more detail. The pyramid that you see there is going to be the pyramid that you would, as you're climbing the VMware certification ladder, that is what you're going to be wanting to run through. So you're going to start out with your VCA, which, if you're familiar with Cisco certification, this would be like your CCENT, or your Cisco Certified Entry-Level Network Technician certification, the ICND 1 test. And basically what all this guy does is he goes through and he You take that test and you validate that you understand what virtualization does. You know the different platforms that you can use, so like ESXi, VMware Workstation, VMware Player. You understand the idea of what a SAN is. You understand what local attached storage is. You understand that there's different situations that you can use different technologies for. If you need to load balance your traffic as virtual machines are being spun up, you would know that that's a feature of Distributed Resource Scheduler, and DRS, or Distributed Resource Scheduler, will utilize a technology known as vMotion to move a virtual machine from one host to another if one host has too much going on and another host is pretty lightly utilized. So that's just one capability. But it's knowing how the technologies interact with each other and how they mesh is going to be the important part. Then we have the VCP, which is going to be what I have. The VCP is going to be a 550 exam that I took, the VCP550, which is right here. The one that I took was 135 questions in 120 minutes. So I was cooking when I was going through the exam, and I finished up, I think, with like 10 minutes left. I squeezed out the entire 2 hours, because you really need it. You can't just sit there because you have to read the question and try to look at the answers and go, And sometimes you have to sit there for a minute and really analyze what's going on, because if you miss it, it could be something very small. It could be you have the wrong VNIC associated to the wrong port group, or you could have the wrong uplink associated to the wrong vSwitch. Little minor things like that you would have to be able to identify. The next one up from there, and I would equate the VCP to a CCNA in VMware, and because of the fact that it's all multiple choice, there are no simulations where you have to configure anything, and it's a multiple choice, single answer, multiple choice, multiple answer. I believe there was some drag and drop, but I honestly don't remember. But I just know it was a multiple choice test. There was no open-ended questions where I had to fill in the blank with written text. There was no simulations where I had to physically go in and create a virtual machine or add shared storage or anything like that. And then we get into the VCAP. The VCAP, or the VMware Certified Advanced Professional, is going to be what I equate to the CCNP, or the Cisco Certified Network Professional. And that is going to be in the ESXi 5.x range of exams. That is going to be where you have a 3 to 3.5 hour exam, depending on where you live and what your native language is. And you are on live physical gear running ESXi. And there are 15 to 25 lab tasks that you have to go through and be able to configure. The VCAP exam there's two of them. There's the Data Center Administration and Data Center Design. Data Center Administration, you are tasked with configuring a bunch of stuff. There's some troubleshooting involved, so you could go through and learn how that goes, and then be able to get everything situated with that. And then you take and pass that test. I believe it's not a lot. It's not an immediate grade like the VCA and the VCP, because of the fact that those two exams are delivered through a testing engine, and like CCNA, CCNP, you get your results right away. How do I know that? I happen to hold a certification for both. Same thing with the CCIE written. I'm actually working on my CCIE at the same time. So the VCP and VCA, you get your results right away. As soon as you click, you're finished with the exam or whatever it is, at the end of the test, so like end exam or something like that, you automatically get your results. And congratulations, you've passed, or so we're sorry to inform you that you failed. Whatever the case might be. A VCAP is more like the CCIE, where you are graded after you've finished the exam, and you have to wait a period of time for a VMware employee to grade your test. When I took my CCIE lab exam about a month ago, at the end of April, when I went to take the test, I knew right away that I had failed, because I wasn't doing very well in one of the particular sections. But I stayed the entire day to make sure that I could do it. So in a VCAP, if you're struggling with something, I don't know how much the VCAP costs. I want to say I've read people online saying it's like $800 per exam, but don't quote me on that one. I could request authorization for VCAP 5.5. That's like the next level for me, but I've decided to hold off for ESXi 6, which is that exam actually isn't available yet, and that's the VCIX, and I will talk about that coming up here in just a moment. But and then you get, once you've done, you have two different VCAP exams: data center administration, where you're actually configuring things and troubleshooting, and then you have the design exam, where you would be designing everything and getting drag and drop and more multiple choice, multiple answer, that type of stuff. So you would be associating, what's the best method to do. You want to do XYZ technology, XYZ solution. What would be the best technology to use to do that? So you might choose block storage over file storage, or fiber channel over iSCSI, things like that. And then the VCDX is VMware's top tier certification. I don't know much about that other than the fact that there's a it's not like the CCIE where you can just go schedule the test and go take it. You actually have to submit some design work that you've done, and then it has to pass the complexity level of a VCDX design. So there's like a sanity check to make sure that it actually qualifies to be difficult enough for you to be able to have people pick it apart. And then there's a test, I believe, and there's a defense where you actually are questioned on it. And it's like you're dealing with the customer himself, and you have to deal with all the senior executives and the senior engineers, and you're there to completely redesign or what have you their entire environment. So that's where the VCDX comes into play, and that is not something I'm looking forward to taking anytime soon. But anyway, on the right hand side here we have if you've never been VMware certified, or let's say you have the VCA but you've never been VCP. If you're just starting out, you have to take an authorized course, and I will repeat again, this exam, or I'm sorry, the videos you're watching here do not qualify for that exam. So you cannot take this watch these videos, go to VMware and say, hey, I watched these videos on YouTube, the guy's at VCP, he shows it online, or shows it in the video, and he can I take my test? Now the caveat to this though is you can ask for authorization for the exam, take and pass the exam, but you will not earn the credential for the exam until you've taken the authorized course. And those authorized courses are right here. I've laid them out for you. The install, configure, manage, this is the one that I took for 5.5, and it was live online. It was 5 days, 8 hours each day, and I mean there's several breaks in between, but it's probably about 6 hours a day that you're going through technologies, and you're given live equipment to play with via the vendor that's supplying the training, and you log in. You're able to play with different things, and it's that you actually go through the entire blueprint as you're going through there that's specific to the exam, and they want to make sure that you know how to do things. So the instructors you're going through will double check your work, make sure you actually could vMotion between two different hosts and things like that. And then once you've taken this class, you can then schedule and pass one of these exams. Now, technically speaking, I took the VCP550 exam. You could take that before taking this class, but you won't get the credential if you do it that way. I took the class and then took the test, and then I got an email, I think a day later, that or later that day. Honestly, I forget. It's been such a long time. With Cisco, when you take your CCNP exams, there's 3 of them: routing and switching and T-shoot. And once you've taken the route switch and T-shoot exam, that's when you actually earn the CCNP. So you can take route, then you can take switch, and then you can take T-shoot individually. But until you take and pass all 3, you don't earn the CCNP. So you take that, and then once you do, then once you pass the test, it'll actually show you online that you passed the test, but you won't have earned the credential of the CCNP until you've passed all 3. The same thing applies with VMware. So you would get you'll have to go in and validate your test and sit there and wait for it to actually get validated by the vendor, and then the vendor will say, congratulations, you've passed. And then you get this PDF in the mail. I actually printed this one online, and then you get this. This is what I put on my resume right there. And then there's a lot of material to cover. Absolutely a lot of material to cover. So what I do is I read the book and I watched a bunch of videos. So I went through the book, and I just I methodically went through it, started reading stuff, and if I thought it was applicable, I'd copy and paste it into Notepad, which made it. I was building my own, like, I guess you could say, thinned down specifics. That I get rid of all the fluff of all the wordy. What's the best way to put it? Like the booky type stuff. So as you're reading through there, there's kind of a flow from one topic into another. Well, I maintained the flow, if you will, but I removed all of the extra fluff of, just extra text that I didn't see applicable. It's like, well, if you're in this type of, whatever. So that's why I thinned the book out. It's still a lot of material to cover, and there's actually a lot I'm still reviewing, so that I can make sure that I deliver something that's solid. And then as we go through here, you'll see that down here is the roadmap for all the certifications. So they have 4 different tracks. They have, at least this is copied from VMware site. So they have data center virtualization, which is basically going to be server virtualization. Then they have cloud management and automation, so you can do a bunch of cloud stuff. You can do desktop and mobility and network virtualization. Now see this VCIX? The VCIX in an ESXi 6 actually replaces the VCAP. And so if you were looking to take your certification, if you're a VCP like me and you want to take it to the next level, then the VCIX in 6.0 is the way to go. I don't know when they're going to retire the VCAP DCA, but I'm sure it's going to be coming soon because of the upgrade of 6.0. And we'll be covering 6.0 towards the end of our videos here. I'll upgrade all of our hosts from 5.5 to 6, and we'll take a look at how that process works, and then I'll do like a what's new, and cover the applicable stuff that's different, or if it's not different but they added features, things like that, just so you guys have an idea of how that would all come into play. That's pretty much it for the certification overview. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you guys a quick overview of the lab that we're going to be running through, and so you guys have an idea of how that works. The lab itself is pretty straightforward. If you get it, then great. If not, then hopefully that I'll be able to explain some things. So let me scroll up here. Now this big thick black line that you see going around this big rectangle, what that rectangle signifies is my actual ESXi server. So I have an IBM 3650 M2 server running 64 gigs of RAM and two Xeon core processors with 2 processors, 4 cores per processor. So that means I have 16 logical CPUs. But anyway, that's beside the point. Basically, what that means is, though, this is where I'm going to be doing all of my work. So this is how I'm going to simulate everything that I needed to get done and get everything situated for you guys. So what I'm going to be doing is, with these ESXi 551 and 552, I am going to be clustering these 2 hosts so that we can simulate fault tolerance, high availability, storage DRS, DPM, things like that are needed for those features to work. I'm going to have 2 standalone hosts that are just going to be there, that are not going to be clustered. And you can, when you're doing your clustering, this would be a great place for doing your web services, your application databases, and application database and other things that might be out there that you would need to have an HA pair, so that if one thing fails over, it can fail over to the other one. Or if you're doing some sort of Microsoft network load balancing or clustering, this would be a good place to put your Microsoft servers. And then we're going to have this rounded rectangle here is going to be where the virtual machines sit. Now, typically what I'm going to do is I'm going to load 1, maybe 2 Windows hosts inside of each virtual machine, or inside of each host. And these hosts right here are actually installed virtual machines inside of my ESXi host. And I'm simulating what you would use in VMware Workstation. So in VMware Workstation, you would pull up Workstation, you would install your vCenter server, you would install your hosts, and you would install like OpenFiler for doing your shared storage and things like that. So that's what you would do as you're going through your training. Now, once that is all deployed, then you can start doing things with it, like adding a domain and getting things into the domain and some other capabilities. What I just did is I simply went into my host and I plugged in some cables to the back of my host so that I'd be able to get uplinks active, so that I'd be able to place vSwitches with active NIC cards and separate them. So in Workstation, what you would do real quick is, let me get you to the home screen. So this is Workstation. And if I was to click on the virtual network editor, what you can do here is you would create a bunch of VM networks. And what these VM networks are going to signify is you're going to be trying to separate the traffic of your vMotion traffic, your fault tolerance and high availability traffic, your SAN traffic, your management traffic, your production traffic, and anything else that you would want to have in there that you'd want traffic separation for. Now, you want traffic separation as much as you can. You don't want to have a bunch of traffic flowing over the same VLANs and same subnets. It doesn't make sense to do that. So as we go through the videos, we'll be breaking this stuff down and how it actually would work. So I took the same concept here with the subnet and the VM networks, and I did the exact same thing in my host with vSwitches. And I took vSwitches and I placed each unique host with a specific amount of NIC card or vNICs. So if I pull up my host and I bring this guy over, so ESXi551 right here, we go to Edit Settings. You'll see that actually we just do click on right here, click on Summary. You'll see that I've given this guy 8 gigs of RAM. He's running ESXi, so I've been able to virtualize the hypervisor that we're going to be working with. I've done that, and then what I did is I have 5 vNICs. If I was to right click on or click Edit Settings, you'll see that I have 5 network adapters, adapter 1 through 5, and that adapter 1 is in VM network, which is for management traffic. I have vMotion migrate, which is going to be for vMotion. I have SAN traffic, production traffic, and fault tolerance and high availability. So what I've done is I've taken those guys, I've placed them in the appropriate the network adapter in the appropriate VM network, as you can see. Close that out, and that's where this guy shows up here. So these are the networks it's attached to, so that when I'm doing storage traffic or my SAN traffic, it will not be interfering with my vMotion traffic or my production traffic. So that's how I'm going to work with that. And you have to have the underlying separation before you do the. You have to have the underlying separation at the host level before you can start putting virtual machines in place to utilize those network resources. And then I have OpenFiler here. OpenFiler has its network adapters inside of the appropriate port groups, which are assigned to the appropriate vSwitches. So if I go to networking here, the vSwitch has a port group which is named appropriately for the type of traffic that it's going to be dealing with. And then I go in and I apply the vNICs into the appropriate port group, and then I assign the appropriate uplinks to those vSwitches. So if there's no vNIC associated to a vSwitch, you're not going to be able to leave that vSwitch. However, the problem with having not associating a vNIC with it is if the vNIC is not operational, traffic doesn't pass. At least that's my experience with it. So you have to have an active uplink in order for traffic to pass through, and that was just my experience with it. So up here, if you look up on my vSwitch 0, which is technically my management traffic, if you come down here, and I have my management network, so this is management. If I scroll to the top here, I have 2 vNICs associated to this vSwitch, and it's going to load balance across them, and they're both active. So I'll talk a lot more about this when we get into the networking side, but that's important to make sure you have the appropriate configuration set up, which is going to be identical to what the VNets are. That's how you're going to separate your traffic, and that's how I'm breaking this stuff down here. So I take this black line. If you're familiar with networking, the way to signify a local area network that's going to be supporting broadcast traffic is you draw a line through here like a bus, and then you attach a bunch of lines to it to the individual virtual machines or the individual hosts. And what this is going to allow you to identify is that management traffic is going to be going to all the boxes, but vMotion traffic is only going to be going between the hosts and the storage area network, or open filer. And we have SAN traffic is only going to go between the hosts and open filer. Production traffic is going to go between the DC1 and the what do you call it? The host. And the reason for that is because we're going to have a couple of Windows boxes that are going to be deployed inside of the hosts here, which are going to be utilizing Active Directory. They're going to be utilizing DNS. So management traffic is going to be strictly for me to manage the boxes, and that's going to be from admin.com. So I'm going to be over here on this box managing all that, and then I'm going to be coming in here and getting everything else situated. So I will be able to go from admin to DC1 to do DNS updates and to make sure everything's working, and to add and subtract users and things like that. And then I'll be able to the production traffic will be utilizing like Active Directory and some other capabilities that are going to be needed for validating hosts and validating the users and things like that to the production VLAN. So that's why I have the production set up here as well. And then I have fault tolerance and high availability. And if you notice that they all have fault tolerance and high availability capabilities, but if you notice they only go between the vCenter server and these guys. Now I have this one set up here in case I wanted to cluster these two, which I can eventually cluster them, because all you have to do is just physically drag it into the cluster. But typically what I'm going to do with the clustering is this is where HA is actually going to take place, because when you create a cluster, that's when you're able to do advanced features like DRS and things like that, and then we'll be able to go from there. VCSA is a VMware is a vCenter server appliance, which is a Linux box. This is going to be if you don't have a Windows environment deployed and you don't want to go out and spend money on Windows deployments. You can there's a virtual machine you can download and install on a inside your host, and it's a virtual machine that you download. So place it anywhere inside your virtual environment you'd like. I've actually seen one customer, a small customer, they had a single location, but they wanted to, but they had two hosts, and everything was Linux, and they didn't want to spend money on a Windows environment to get things done. And so I said, well, you can download the Linux appliance, and that'll work. And then they actually took a Ubuntu box, and was it Ubuntu? I think it was Ubuntu. But anyway, the idea was to take VMware Player and virtualize the VCSA, which takes 8 gigs of RAM, and it's not a light box. It's actually pretty powerful. Take that, and then they deployed that outside of the virtual environment, so they'd be able to manage everything from there. But you could easily put this inside your virtual environment; it would work just fine. So yeah, that's pretty much what some of the different situations that you can run into. And so I'll be doing the administration from admin.com. So I'll be using a tool called Terminals, which I'll show you that real quick here. Terminals is an application that you can use to consolidate all of your RDP sessions to a single application. Terminals lets me go in here, and right now I'm logged into Windows 7 for GNS3 because of the fact that it's running GNS3, which is a router virtualization program. And what you can do here is I can manage all the boxes from this one central location, so I don't have to keep jumping around and have multiple remote desktop sessions open to several different computers. And I can have it all signified here, so I can since they're set up here, I don't have any connections to any other boxes, but they'd be tabbed up here. So if I wanted to connect to DC1, I'm going to be able to log into this guy. Yep, and then it's going to have this tab here. So I'm running that there. I can go click off on this guy, and then I can go back and forth. So I'm able to tab them, and that allows me to move back and forth pretty easily as I'm going through. So I don't need many of those open. It's more or less for, hey, it makes it easier to work with and go from there. So that's pretty much it where it sits for that. Beyond that, that's pretty much all I wanted to show you guys. Just giving you an idea of how everything is put together. If it doesn't make a lot of sense now, as we go through, it'll make more and more sense as we go along. And go from there. Because unless you have, there's a lot of little details that I can't talk about now because of the fact that I'll be ruining surprises later on. But I think for the most part, I think you guys will be impressed with the technology capabilities as we go along. So that's pretty much all I had for you today, or for this video, I should say. We'll go from there going on. There's a quick question. What does vCenter look like? This one? Well, I can connect to it. Double click on it and let me log into it real quick for you. This is just a Server 2008 R2 box. There's some weird issues that happen with 2008 R2 if you it's easier to install vCenter Server in a 2008 R2 box than it is in 2012. I have not figured out how to do it in 2012 yet. But 2012 is my domain controller. 2008 R2 is my vCenter Server, and you have to have a vCenter Server. You have to have a server platform available to install vCenter 2, as well as at least 4 gigs of RAM. That's a minimum requirement for vCenter to work. And we'll install vCenter Server on a different box so you guys can see the actual deployment of that. It's actually pretty simple. It's like you click launch and it kind of does it itself. So we'll take a look at how that would go along. But it's pretty straightforward for the most part. But if you understand how the stuff works on the behind the scenes, learning how the stuff was deployed is actually pretty simple. And then from Windows 7 for GNS3, I'm actually logged into vcenter.com, vcenter.company.com up here, and that allows me to remote into the vCenter services that are running on the vCenter server. And so that's how that works. And because of the fact that I've got it all mapped on the back end the right way, that's how that comes into play. So, but that's what I wanted to cover in this video. So basically, I wanted to cover an introduction to the exam, the architecture that I'm working with, and how I'm going to be accessing all the devices, and go from there. So there's a question here that is specific to the exam. There's a question from the exam, and I will help you out if you word it the right way. And what it basically means is I will not break the non-disclosure agreement that I signed with VMware, which means that I will not answer a question if you word it that it's from the test. So if you want to word it in such a way that I have a client that's dealing with this issue, I will do my best to help you out. But if you say, hey, I saw this on the exam, these are the answers, how would you have answered it? I will not do that because I don't want that to, do not ask me a question exam centric. You can ask me a question about the exam, but not from the exam. So you could ask me, what's the look and feel look like, things like that. I had no problem answering those because that's something that isn't going to be giving away an answer to a question. So, but yeah, I won't answer that question. There's another question: how long is it going to take for the videos to get produced and uploaded? That's hard to say at this point in time. I'm hoping to do a couple of videos a day, and I'm probably going to have sitting between half an hour and 45 minutes. I'm trying to do at least one video a day, if not two, and that'll give me the opportunity to get stuff set out. But I'm still studying for other things. I'm actually I don't know if you caught it or not, but I actually have a server test port group in here, right here, which is going to be for my MCSA, Microsoft Certified Solutions Associate certification. So I want to start learning Microsoft a little better than I already know it. So I'm going to be repurposing my 2 domain controllers and 3 member servers into that, and that's actually what's running over here. So I'm going to be having several servers and upgrading them and things like that. So 2012 is going to be I'm going to be knowing that quite a bit coming up. So That's pretty much what I want to show you in this video. We're going to move into the more advanced topics as we go along. So I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.